Good morning. Welcome to the XM.com market update, and we're joined again by Peter McGuire, the CEO of XM. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning, Andrew.
Let's get into those numbers. Once again, we'll start on the domestic front. The Aussie dollar coming under pressure. A couple of scenarios there. Obviously, the interest rate differentials and the issues coming out of China.
Absolutely. The Aussie peso has been outstanding to short over the last week or two. We did say that if those rates don't get increased, then you'll probably see 66, 65, and then you saw, and I think we mentioned last week, probably a 64 handle. And are we going to go much lower? Considering the situation with China, is 63, 62 sort of like the new hello?
Yeah, and I think with the talk coming out of the Reserve Bank, where you would assume there'll be some more interest rate rises, but the talk has certainly changed, where they seem to be becoming a little bit more cautious as to, do we leave them on hold for the time being?
Say Melbourne Cup.
And see what the effect is.
From inflation globally and with fuel prices and certainly the price of oil.
Yeah. Another stat out of Australia as well, the building approvals year on year, which is, considering the housing market in Australia, is still quite strong. Now that's probably around a limit, the limit on the supply side.
Yes.
But once again, you look, that's nearly 2 years worth of data there, and building approvals down, which if anything will probably put more pressure to the upside.
You would think
on
so.
Housing prices.
Yes, they would, and rents, of course. And the other thing is, you've seen a large number of construction companies go to the wall. You've got net migration running at 400,000 a year, so they need something to live, if you look at Maslow's theory. And then the third part is, you've got that transfer cost. Real estate prices are holding in Sydney. I can't talk for other states, but there is little stock. Traditionally, you get that spring bounce, but there's been little stock, and in turn, that's really impacting prices and keeping them pretty much lockstep at the moment.
Yeah, and I think particularly from a Sydney and Melbourne perspective, the bulk of that immigration tends to come to the two
big
biggest
capital cities.
So which will certainly underpin those prices.
Yeah.
China. Once again, we spoke about it last week, the issues up there around debt, youth unemployment, etc., and the CPI. The official numbers come in 0.3% down, which once again, you look at it
deflation.
Over the last few months, it hasn't been hot anyway, but it is a concern.
Yeah, it started to drop around Easter. After we expected things to really take off. Well, I think most analysts did after Lunar New Year, and certainly into that April period. You said, right, we're off to the races. China's going to really come out of the blocks quickly. It just hasn't happened. It's actually stalled and in some ways gone backwards.
Yeah, and now you've got all that drama coming out around the bond payments of the real estate companies, which come out only this week.
Yep.
Which
I've been following that closely.
It's a real concern there.
Well, it's who holds the debt. Someone's equity is someone's debt, and the trouble is you've got about 120 banks, international banks, that are holding a great proportion of that property debt. So in turn, if there's a hemorrhage there and it really starts to take a mean bite, then that contagion will spread across all debt holders.
Yeah, it's that flow on.
In other words, the banks.
Yeah, exactly. UK, actually, we've got a big week in the UK this week, a ton of data coming out.
Yeah.
GDP came out, which is actually a pretty good number, but the chart, interesting, you look at that chart where it's very chalk and cheese over the last couple of years, where it's up, down. But
it really looks like a piano there.
Yeah, but I think they'd be reasonably happy with a 0.5% up.
Yeah. We've just got to wait and see how the numbers drop. The pound's been holding that sort of 1.27 sort of handle, and I'm interested to see how this week's a good week for data. US Fed and retail sales, and then the POMs.
Yeah, well, obviously, we'd have a quick look at the pound there. We sort of, as you say, around that just shy of 127, but yeah, plenty of. They got the employment data coming out, the CPI data in the UK, so plenty of numbers coming out to see how the economy is faring.
But if you take that over like that window there, nearly a 12-month window, it's been a dynamic market to trade, because what it came from that 1.2 down to 1.03 or 1.04 that day in I think it was late September, and then it bounced all the way to 133, 132, and then it's hemorrhaged again. Currency trading. Wow.
Volatility, that's what they love.
Yep.
Yeah, over to the US, sort of a busy chart here, but it gives us an idea of obviously the CPI and PPI has been coming down significantly in the last
Yes.
few months. Last week, the CPI did tick up slightly,
Yep.
which was not like that was the expectation. But I think obviously the oil price here is ratcheting up, and we've spoken about that a few times in the last few weeks. So if that was to continue, you would feel as though that will start feeding into those inflation numbers.
100%, and that's the great challenge. Everyone's sitting on the back of in the back seat, just seeing where the driver's taking us here. Are we going to see $90 for crude or higher over this summer or the end of summer period in the States, leading into, say, mid-September, or are we going to see it pull back a little bit from here?
Yeah.
But it's certainly a concern, and I've got those retail sales and Fed minutes that will give us an indication whether we see another rate rise this year. And there's that 130 basis points cooked in or baked in for a reduction in 24.
Yeah, which would be interesting. Which is a complete reversal, basically.
Yeah.
So, also in the US, wage growth is picking up over the last few months, so which sort of counteracts the inflation to a certain degree.
Yeah, it's just, the chart tells a story, and I think most traders and most retail public are understanding of the impacts as far as inflation. It's been biting long enough now. If you're not paying attention to it, then you earn too much money. And you're looking at your average hourly earnings, people are just, they're doing it tough. It's real tough out there, and it's bleak. And certainly when you start to talk to people that work with the underprivileged, and I'm talking about Australia, the amount of families living in motor cars, and it's real bleak out there, mate. So this is a global phenomenon, and we've just got to see how this, how it works through.
See how we ride it out. Finally, once again on the oil, we've seen both the WTI and Brent rise significantly over the last month or so. It's come back a tad, but it's certainly looking as though it's sort of heading towards that $90 mark.
Yeah, you just saw that big move to the upside really since the end of June, and it's just been like game on. So I get asked frequently, where do you see the prices? Do we see them, top out at 86, 87, or do they continue? Look, there's too many ingredients. Have a look at the IEA. They're 103 million barrels a day. That's what the consumption is, so it's booming. You've got Russia and Saudi, the two biggest producers, cutting production. You've got the strategic oil reserves, petroleum reserves in America down to record lows. So all of this is a perfect storm. If you see some geopolitical tensions or something erupt, or weather outages or hurricanes, then this is going to greatly impact price.
Yeah, and that flows through to a lot of other things as well.
Inflation.
Yes.
And the cost, you just said offline, the cost, I haven't filled the car up for about a week, but I don't do too many kilometres, but you said, the price of fuel in Sydney, everyone's feeling it.
Yeah, it's jumped significantly in the last few weeks, that's for sure.
There you are, man.
Yeah, but as I said, plenty of data this week, so we'll keep an eye on things.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to how the rest of the week plays out, and naturally the rest of August.
Yep, for sure, and we'll regroup next week.
I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent, thanks, Pete.
Thank you, Andrew.
And that's the XM.com weekly market update.